Shalom, everyone, and welcome to this tribute to Bill Friedli. For the last 34 years, Bill has been an integral, beloved member of our congregation. He has served as president and treasurer and ritual coordinator, and he's in charge of our cemetery. So many different aspects, some that you know and some that you don't know. Tonight we are going to hear different aspects of his life and how he got here. You don't know him, perhaps, that he used to be involved in the New York Police Department investigating organized crime. We'll hear some stories perhaps you've never heard before. Also, Bill was responsible for hiring Cantor Gustavo and myself. And there's some stories maybe that you've never heard about how this team was sort of assembled under Bill's watchful eye. We are here also to pay respect and to honor our Hebrew school and adult education. During this difficult year of pandemic, we have been alive and kicking and well with adult education courses, and also our school is exploding. This is also a fundraiser. So we want to just mention to you that in the border, in the chat, there is a link so that you can bid on items for our auction and to make donations to this important cause, CTI, and our adult and Limud education. Also, we're going to have some entertainment tonight. For those of you that attend on Friday evening, you know that we have many different melodies to Adon Olam, and the cantor will be entertaining us with a few of those melodies, and also will be featuring for the first time a new Adon Olam, because Bill loves to sing and loves to dance and loves to have a good time. So we hope that you will join us this evening. It's about a 1-hour presentation. And please support this through the chat if you haven't already. And also offer your chat and your congratulations to Bill. Please use the chat, talk to each other as we celebrate with great joy the life and contribution of Bill Friedli.
Born in Brooklyn, New York. I lived next to a synagogue, right? And where I went to Hebrew school and was bar mitzvahed there. And this was all in, how should I say, my neighborhood. And I lived there until I was married.
Hello, my name is Elaine, and I'm Bill's sister, and I'm here to congratulate him on this well-deserved honor that he is having. Bill and I grew up in a very loving, caring home in Brooklyn, New York, with an extended family. Bill then went off to pursue his career. And I could say my brother was always there for me if I ever needed him. He was the one that set me up on the computer. In later years, we've become great travel partners. Susan, Bill, my husband Floyd, and myself. We have done road trips. We've sailed the high seas, and we look forward to 2022, where we have a number of things on the books. So in closing, Bill, I would just like to say that I wish you well. I wish you stay safe, only be healthy, and congratulations. And from me, from the family, we love you.
Well, congratulations on receiving this honor from your temple. It is certainly well deserved.
A neighbor lived on my floor a couple of doors away. And when I got talking to him, he said he was a retired police sergeant. And I realized he was Jewish. I asked him a question. So I said, how is it the police department? He told me he had a great job. Walk in and get the forms to take the test. And I just picked it up, filled it out, and took the test. Nobody in my family other than my wife knew I was taking the police test. And when I was being called for the job, so to speak, I first told my parents. There was always my grandmother was very worried. You should see, if you see such trouble, you should walk the other way.
I've taken many car trips with Bill. And one of them that sticks out in my mind is when I was in the process of deciding where to go to college, and Bill took me to visit Brandeis University. So Bill drove me up to Waltham to see the campus, and as we walked around, I thought, well, this looks like a nice place, and I could kind of imagine myself spending 4 years here. So to seal the deal, Bill offered to buy me a sweatshirt before we left campus, and I ended up going to Brandeis, and I had a great college experience. And I think back to the many car trips I've taken with Bill. He always does the driving, and he always knows where he's going, and I think this is definitely one of those examples where he helped point me in a good direction.
I joined the police department, and as far as career, it moved along. I spent the first 5 years in uniform. After that, I was promoted sergeant and went into a narcotics division, plain clothes unit. So the big change in my career from that point on, from that transfer to sergeant, I went the next 18 years in the civilian clothes assignments. So did okay. You know, my mother was worried about me that I would turn out to be a bad guy.
When I think about Bill, I think of knowledge, learning, and research. Whether I'm traveling, buying a big life purchase, or investing in the stock market, he's always the person who's helped. And he's very generous in sharing what he knows. He'll send you a bunch of recommendations. He'll tell you the best route to get there. He might even read tons of articles or consumer reports and share the information he found out. Before Google and TripAdvisor, he'd also hand over a big stack of travel guides. And during the course of my life, my mom and Bill have visited me in many places. They made numerous trips to Ithaca to visit me when I was in college at Cornell. They came to Italy when I studied abroad. And more recently, they've even come to West Virginia when I chose to spend my birthday there. And when Brian and I were buying our apartment in Brooklyn 10 years ago, and I was nervous about handing over the huge amount of money for the down payment, he told me to sign the check with both hands at the closing. And that's what I thought of when I was nervously signing that check with the lawyer. And in the situations where two hands weren't quite enough and I needed an extra hand, I've always been able to count on Bill.
I had an Italian radio car partner when I was in uniform. Anyway, so I was working with my partner. It was an evening shift. It was mealtime. And I had heard that my grandmother was making latkes, potato latkes. So I said, come on, we'll take a ride on our meal. So we went down to Grandma and we had dinner over there. So my partner and I, my father was there, and and it was, and whether he knew potato latkes before, he learned. I got the assignment. I was the head of the Brooklyn District Attorney's detective squad. One little story, I sent an undercover officer on a job. He was in a bar in Brooklyn. He was meeting people. Everything was okay until they asked him about, is he married or does he have a girlfriend? So we had to come up with a girlfriend. So we assigned a female police officer to work with him. And they worked together for a period of time until they told us they were getting married. So I made a shitter, The major crime family in Brooklyn was the Gambino crime family with John Gotti. We had many interesting assignments. We had to put a bug in Sammy Gravano's workplace. And it was done in the middle of the night. It was done with the FBI, but our unit did the installation. And I was there as the supervisor, during the night. And so you just did it. Everything was tense and everything like that. But the only thing back then, I said I worked in civilian clothes, and generally I wasn't in danger. I was a supervisor and all this, but that night I was going to work. And I put on my vest, my wife looks at me and says, like, what's going on, So, don't worry, I'll be okay.
Adon Olam Asher Malach Beterem Kol Yetzir Nivra אהבתו ימלוך נולד, והוא היה והווה, והוא יהיה לתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכפילה, אדון עולם, ולבראשית ולתכלית, ולא העוז להביסה, אדון עולם, אדון עולם. אדון עולם, והוא עלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי ושרה, והוא ניסי ומנוסי, מנקוסי, ביום אקרא, אדון עולם, וידו אבקין בוכים, ותשם בעירה, אדון עולם, רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לב לא יירא, שבת שלום ומבורך, שבת שלום.
My first wife, Lois, passed away from lupus. She had been sick for a long time and she passed away. I met Susan Letterman, who became Susan Friedlieb. She was living here in Glen Cove. So we met, we got along. So I had 2 kids from the marriage. She had 2 kids. Oh, how did we meet? That's a real interesting thing these days. Before there was online dating, there was something called personal ads. So Susan put a personal ad, wait a second, in the Jewish newspaper. So I answered the ad with a letter, and next thing I hear, there's a phone call. So, we met in a public place, so, who is this crazy lady or crazy guy? And everything worked out from there.
Let me tell you, so I came home from meeting Bill, and Madeline said to me, so would you like to have a candlelight dinner with him? And I said, yes, that would be nice.
You know what?
Bill is very dedicated and very loyal and very intelligent, and he's very curious. He loves learning, and he's a wonderful partner. Putting 2 families of children together was challenging at times. And who was going to sit where at the table, and who was going to sit by the windows in the car. And so we traveled almost every year. I would earn a trip, and we would get to go to places like Cancun. We used to call it Discovery Toy Camp. We liked cruising because the hotel moved with you, and you didn't have to move your luggage and look for places to eat, and you got to go to beautiful places all the time. So we did a lot of cruising in our time, and hopefully we will get to continue cruising in the future. Bill got asked to be the financial secretary, I think, and he said, okay, and he just stayed on the board after that. He was executive vice president, and then he was president for a while, and then he became ritual chair and did the cemetery, and he's still on the board. And it's a way that I think he feels a way of giving back to the community. It's been a wonderful place for us to be as a family and to express our Jewish heritage.
הוא היושב לו על שם במרומים, הוא הרופא כל חולים. הוא הנותן לו שמחה לילדים, הוא העושה משפטים. הוא בשמיים והוא היחיד, הוא הגדול הנורא. הוא השומר עלינו מצרה. אלוה שמור עלינו כמו ילדים, ששמור עלינו תעצור. תן לנו משימת נעורים, תן לנו כוח עוד באור. שמור עלינו כמו ילדים, ששמור עלינו תעצור. תן לנו משימת נעורים, תן לנו מה כבר נפל לנו עוד בימים, מה כבר נפל כל היום. שמש תקווה בהמון בבתים, לילה ויום של חלום. הוא בשמיים והוא היחיד, הוא הגדול הנורא. הוא השומר עלינו מצרה. אלוה שמור עלינו כמו ילדים, ששמור עלינו תעצור. תן לנו משימת נעורים, תן לנו כוח עוד באור. שמור עלינו כמו ילדים, ששמור עלינו תעצור. תן לנו משימת נעורים, תן לנו
When I first got married, I was working for many years. We got married in 1987, and I worked in the police department until 92. And so another 5 years she was with me in the police department. But then I was, it's not a transfer. I had to actually retire from the police department. I had gotten a job offer to become the chief investigator of the New York State Commission of Investigation. And it was really a very good job for me, from my experience with organized crime units. And the Commission of Investigation was a unit that investigated public corruption in New York State. So that's what I did for the next 8 years after I left the police department. So first encounter with CTI was with Susan. I said she was a member here. So as when we got married, the first thing, I think Chuck Brody was, he was on the board looking, and now you got to sign up as a couple. My children started to go to the Hebrew school, the nursery school, depending on their age, right? So we had kids here. I had 2 kids here, and she still had one, because one had been bat mitzvah, and there was still one in Hebrew school. Maddie was still in Hebrew school back then. So got to meet all the other parents here, and and all the other things, and Susan got involved. I think Susan was membership for 10 years here. And so she was actually more involved at the beginning than I was.
Did you ever?
Andrew got our youngest child, we sent him to Solomon Schechter. And so he, as a little kid, was learning Hebrew, to speak Hebrew. He was learning, Jewish rituals. He's bringing home Shabbat items. And I wasn't that familiar, I started learning especially when I retired. I had more time to do things like this, and I started learning. I've been studying Jewish texts, Jewish things, and so that's where I'm at.
Everything that they don't teach you in school that an adult needs to do, he pretty much taught me how to do. My taxes. He taught me how to, buy and sell a car. Taught me how to invest money. Well, I mean, when I started going to Solomon Schechter, I was very young. I think every week they give a different child like a Shabbat package. We did that one week. After that, I think we started doing Shabbat every, it's been the same since 2nd grade. He cleaned and disassembled all his guns on the kitchen table. And I just remember being so intrigued. But that was probably the only time I ever saw them ever. I was young, and I would always goof around when it was time to take a family picture. I would make like silly faces. I wouldn't be a serious model. And I remember my dad would he would hold my wrist firmly and be like, Andrew, picture, smile. Was playing catch with my brother, Josh.
So I remember traveling down to Florida with my dad. It was just me and him. And it was around the time when my grandma had officially moved to New Jersey. She was living in a assisted living, and we had to clean out her apartment down in Century Village. And I remember she had so much crap in this apartment. She had collected over the years. We're talking, ketchup packets, straws. I think she had alcohol for my dad's bar mitzvah, from what I remember. And Century Village had a rule where you could only fill up one garbage can, like a dumpster, outside the complex. But you weren't supposed to go to other, garbage areas. So my dad, being my dad, he kind of went, well, we don't have time to, throw things away like this. We can't do it in, piecemeals. So I remember we took the rental car and we loaded it up with all this garbage. And we drove around the complex throwing garbage out and trying to make sure none of the senior citizens actually saw us doing so. So there's this whole thing where I would be sitting in the passenger side of the vehicle. He would look around, drive to a garbage can, and then tell me to get out of the car and throw things away. And I'd run out of the car, open up the dumpster, throw garbage in, and then we'd speed away. And I think we did this a good 3 or 4 times. I don't know if Century Village was shocked to see how much garbage was being thrown out that day, but I remember doing this with my dad. And, that was just one example of my dad, he was a serious man, but he definitely has a great sense of humor. And, strangely enough, that's one moment that sticks out greatly in my head. So I'm glad we were able to do that.
You raise your hand and say, I'll help out. That's all you have to do around here. So if somebody is interested in how to become the president or any other position on the board, is just raise your hand and say, I'm willing to try. I got on the board as, financial secretary, followed by executive vice president. The president, while I was executive vice president, went to Florida and left me there holding the bag, so to speak. So I was president for 3 years. I got elected another two-year term, and so I was president for 3 years. When the president thing ended, I was ritual for at least 12 years. I was the ritual guy. And after that, I was treasurer here. And now I'm just a trustee after, how many years is that? I'd say about 25 years on the board. And, but as trustee, I've been helping out as treasurer.
One of the greatest success stories that we've experienced here at CTI has been the growth of our Limud Hebrew School. Bill and Susan have been integral parts of the inspiration of helping us grow this school from perhaps 2 or 3 students a decade ago to over 100 today. This is a fundraiser also in support of our Hebrew school that kept going during the pandemic, both virtually and in person, always keeping our children safe, but always maintaining the highest level of education. We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Limud school, and we hope that again you will continue to support this by pressing the link in the chat, and donating to this important cause for this tribute in Bill Friedlieb's honor in support of our Limud Hebrew School and adult education.
Living in a community such as ours, family, relationships, education are everything. And the partnership and support that you have provided over the years to enrich our synagogue and all the experiences for our families is priceless. From the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. My family has been impacted positively, as have our entire community, by your wonderful contributions. Wishing you all the very, very best, and we thank you once again.
Mazel tov to Bill Friedlieb and the Friedlieb family. We're so happy that we get to celebrate this year in honoring you at the temple. I remember when I first started here, I had the opportunity to go to a few of the lunch and learns, and they were so incredible. I wish I had been able to go to more. It's been a wonderful experience since I started here 6 years ago, being part of this temple and seeing really what was established. Freda and Susan and so many other people tirelessly worked on establishing the Hebrew school and building the programs. And the congregation had all these wonderful programs like the book club and lunch and learn. And it was really nice to see how everything kind of interconnected and how we have something for everyone. And so it's really a pleasure to be part of Congregation Tiferet Israel and its congregational learning that is available to everyone. I hope that you are enjoying this night honoring you and many more years.
The synagogue was losing members. We had a rabbi that was going to be leaving us shortly, and we started searches. We also needed a new cantor. So we started searches during my tenure there. And I was very much into, I don't want to call it modernizing, but adding things to make things easier. The committee to search for the cantor. And we were checking out schools and, cantorial schools and all this type of thing. And the synagogue wasn't very computer literate at the time, so the email for the synagogue was my email address, right? It was called Shalom to You, and it's not in existence anymore, so you don't have to say. So I had this email address, and I received an email from somebody in Argentina who said he's looking for a job as a part-time cantor for the high holidays. And we didn't need a high holiday cantor. So I wrote back to him and I said, we need a full-time cantor. Well, after he fell on the floor and collapsed, from what I could hear, he didn't sleep all night. And then we had the trouble of convincing the board to get an airplane ticket for somebody from far away to bring them to meet here. But one of our members supplied a frequent flyer ticket. I don't have to say, give a kavod to who it was. And so he went back and we made him a job offer, and then he had a struggle to get his visas with his family to come here. So that was all through help also and other people needed. We know he was coming. Eitan was only an infant when he came here. So we knew he had 2 children, one very small. So we got furniture for the house, and there were a whole bunch of congregants that helped out doing that. And I got a.
Let me tell you something about Bill. Bill is really very, very brave. He took a chance on a person who didn't know, and he received an email from far, far away in Argentina, and he decided to give it a try and to give this person a chance. It's a story with a happy ending, and it's something I will always be grateful for. But also it taught me a lesson to be bold and don't be afraid to take a chance. Don't be afraid to try something new. For many years before GPSs, we also had you on speed dial on our cell phones every time that would be, especially going through Brooklyn. And we would call you to help us navigate places that we had no clue how to get through. So thank you again, Bill. We love you.
I have a few special things to tell you about Bill. His laugh is contagious. He chuckles. I never knew anybody who chuckled before. I had the opportunity to be a passenger in the car when Bill was driving through Manhattan traffic. All I can say is that it was an experience. We know if you're in the synagogue, you know where you could find Bill. If it's Wednesday, he's in the library with, it was called Lunch and Learn, now it's called Torah Talk, because Bill loves to teach. But if it's Shabbat, then you will find him at the round table in the Kiddush room in the corner near the window. And that's where Bill will give you stories about all of his trips. I feel like I've been there without spending a dime. The most serious thing I could tell you about Bill is that we wouldn't be here, CTI wouldn't be CTI, if he hadn't intervened and found the cantor for us and the rabbi for us. He brought them from far and wide, and CTI is what it is today because of his efforts. Strong, steady, creative, and determined, we are the beneficiaries of Bill's talents. Thank you very much, Bill.
With a different rabbi. So, and then we had temporary rabbis that would come in and spend some time with us. Anyway, the conservative movement wasn't sending us the top of the list of rabbis, so we waited a year. We actually intentionally waited not to hire anybody for a whole year, because I think the rule was after a year you could reach out to other sources other than the Rabbinical Assembly. And that's when we started reaching out to, I called Yeshiva University, I called the Hebrew College in Boston, and I called the school, AJR. And when I called AJR, it was interesting because they asked me, what are you looking for? So I said, well, we have a cantor that really likes to sing. It would be great to get a rabbi that was interested in music and, and stuff like that we could work with. And they had the name right there, we have him, that type of thing. And the next thing is the rest of the story. The rabbi came, I think it was Sukkot, because we were going around and visiting houses, and he borrowed somebody's guitar. He didn't bring a guitar, he borrowed someone's guitar, right? And he was leading songs in this one, and we had a great time. So that's the beginning of the story, and you know the rest of the story.
So there's a side story, which I've never actually told, that on the first day that Patty and I came to Glen Cove, we almost turned around and went back, and it was because of Bill. So on that particular day, Patty had worked a night shift, and I said, Patty, you got to get into the car. We have an audition, our first audition ever, to go to Glen Cove. Now, Patty was not having a good hair day because she had worked all night, and she wore a beautiful wig. And we went through the service, and it was a beautiful service. And Bill walks up to me and says, Your wife is wearing an Orthodox wig. We don't do that kind of thing here. Maybe you're not. I said, no, 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 no. And it was love at first sight in terms of ourselves in this congregation. That Sunday evening, after we spent a weekend in Glen Cove, Patty and I drove to the yacht club and we watched the sun come down. And we looked at each other and we said, is it possible that Bill's vision was a good vision, that this would be the first and last congregation that we ever serve? And as we watched the sundown, we held hands and we said, this is our community that we want to live in. It's kind, there's a beautiful sense of community, they love music, and there's a togetherness that we want to be a part of.
A number of years ago, Bill started a new program called Lunch and Learn. It was very informative and I enjoyed it immensely. However, I did have one complaint about it. It was called Lunch and Learn, yet he never served any lunch. Seriously though, Bill has been a font of information for not only myself, but for the synagogue in general. He's got the corporate memory of the organization, having been here for such a long time. In addition, he's great at giving advice and knowledge about things and the way they should be done. And for that, I personally thank him. I wish him well in life as he goes forward in his new journey.
One of my favorite quotes from the Talmud is, there where you need to go, you'll be led. And there's no question, Bill, that you have been my North Star. I went to a Maya class, and I sat next to somebody who introduced himself as Bill. Well, adults like children, once we sit next to each other, we continued for 2 years to sit next to each other. And that following January, again, my guru, Bill, said, oh, you need to come to Lamud, New York. And it was the first time that you began the tradition of telling stories of someone as your site. We're going to join CTI. All the rest is history. A long, wonderful friendship. We love you guys.
CTI ends up becoming your home and your social life, and you know we have so many friends here at CTI that you run into. Like I said, our kids went through the nursery school with other families that we knew all the other families, and we went on one of the CTI trips to Israel, and we had been there once prior.
So a funny story I could talk about my father is when we were kids and my mom used to go away on weekends at times, my father was in charge of cooking for us, but normally he was in charge of cooking for us every weekend in general. My mom was the week cook, my father was the weekend cook. But when my mom went away, he would make this dish. And it was crescent rolls that were wrapped up with hot dogs. So it was like we bake it in the oven. It was really good. Not the most healthiest, but it was definitely a delicacy for us, especially when my mom went away. We looked forward to that. He always used to tell us, don't tell mom, so, and we never did until now that we're adults. And if you ask him till this day, he will deny it. He'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. But that's something that we joke about a lot with him, and times when we're sitting together as a family and everything like that. And another thing, I'm very grateful for him. He's a wonderful man, and I get very choked up when I talk about this, but I'm very thankful every day that he came to Chile to adopt me, and that I'm a part of his family. And he has been the best father I could ever ask for. So for that, I thank you, Dad, and I love you.
To reflect back on it, first of all, I am very lucky. My career choice could have gone in any different direction, but it turned out to be great for me. I moved along. I had great jobs, and I am a lucky guy. We have a great family, a loving wife, and and friends and career and all that stuff, and nothing to complain about. Absolutely nothing to complain about. Hopes to the future, see that it continues. I mean, we're a unique place. CTI has become a much more pluralistic synagogue. We're into people that wouldn't have considered a conservative synagogue joining here and liking it.
So we hope that you've enjoyed this tribute to Bill Friedlieb. Once again, in the chat, there is a link for you to donate, to bid on items at our auction. And to wrap things up, and as in honor of Bill Friedlieb, Cantor Gustavo is now about to preview and to introduce his new video of Adon Olam, our tribute to dance and our tribute to song. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
אדון עולם אשר מלך וטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר והוא יהיה ותפארה וידו הפקיד רוחי ותשעה והעירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדון עולם אשר מלך וטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה ותפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך וטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר ותפארה והוא היה והוא עובר ותפארה והוא היה והוא עובר ותפארה והוא היה